please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Global Natural Resources Conclave 2018, May 28th and 29th, New Delhi.
Hello and welcome to this very special episode and a run-up to the Global Natural Resources Conclave 2018. And joining us for the conversation today is Mr. Kuldip Kaura, who is CEO Vedanta. Interesting times, isn't it? Because we are looking at artificial intelligence, technology, cyber, digital as the latest key buzzwords into the market. And then, of course, if you look at the international markets, you have the global trade relations being talked about, tariffs being is something that we are talking about every day. Protectionism is yet another word. How have you taken in all of these changes, and what do you see a longer term impact of all of this on economy?
I think you touched on two things. One was artificial intelligence and AOT and things like that. So I think this is very exciting. Somebody would think that brick and mortar industry like mining doesn't have any use for this. But believe me, I mean, this is revolutionizing the mining industry today. I mean, all the autonomous vehicles, communication possibilities within the mine, actually it makes mine, number one, much more safer, which is what you really need. And then number two, it increases your productivity tremendously.
Sure.
So in fact, we have been experimenting in our mines, and two of our mines, one at Hindustan Zinc here near Udaipur, and one of our mines in Zinc International, both have actually been digitalized. And the mine at Udaipur is operational. And phenomenal results. The resources industry, generally speaking, has been boundaryless kind of industry.
It is.
Within the world. Outputs flow from one corner of the world to another corner fairly seamlessly. I mean, that's the nature of industry, because consumption centers are many, but these minerals or hydrocarbons can be found the way they can be found.
Yes, and India, as we have been discussing all the time, is endowed with so many natural resources. So a market leader like yours, would you say that we still really haven't even dipped onto the surface of it? I mean, we haven't really gone to the kind of opportunity or the contribution that this can make to the economy or the GDP. What would you want to really flag on for that to happen, for India to really make use of that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the way India is developing as a country, with our economy ticking nicely, 7–8% year on year, and plus the intensity of consumption in India is actually far lower than what would you call as average in the world, maybe 1/3 to 1/4 in most basic things, on most basic metals. So India's demand is likely to actually increase exponentially over the next 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
I mean, I would think that across the businesses we are in, like aluminium, copper, zinc, we would see at least demand 3 to 4 times over the next 10–12 years. By 2030, I mean, we consume about 3.5 million tons of aluminium in the country today.
Okay.
This number could be as much as 11–12 million tons. And so is the case with the other two things. Having said that, I mean, then we're also very fortunate as a country that we have abundant natural resources. And whether it's coal, whether it's bauxite, whether it's oil, whether it's zinc, so there are plenty of it there. And focus on exploration has been relatively low. And so even with the current GSI data, we have plenty. And third, I mean, if you look at the countries which have developed on the strength of natural resources sector, like Brazil, like Australia, or for that matter, Canada also. I mean, Australia, for example, mining is about 10–11% of GDP of the country, whereas in India, this figure stands at 2–2.5%. But the point is, this number needs to go up for two reasons. One is you have tremendous demand coming up.
Sure.
And this is a sector which you cannot develop in a hurry. It has a certain kind of a time cycle, so steps must be taken immediately. And the number two, I mean, this also caters to overall development of the country in terms of society, in terms of people, in terms of infrastructure, or any other aspect, schooling, stuff like that. I mean, and the minerals in India are also mostly in the eastern part of the country.
Okay.
This development of mineral industry actually can accelerate and support efforts of the government in actually improving the overall quality of life for people.
So while we have talked about on how to leverage the natural resources in India, you just talked about on how strong demand expectations we are looking at. So with that in mind, what is that 3 or 5 point agenda that India needs to watch out right now to ensure that those demand is met?
First of all, for any investment to, let's say, flourish or viable, you know, everybody is looking for a return and a level playing field. Right? So I think, I mean, the industry, whether it's in oil and gas or whether it's in the mineral side, I mean, the investors must get a level playing field. They must be able to sell their output at international prices. They must be able to do exactly the same way if they would have invested in Australia or Brazil or somewhere else.
Right pricing and profits.
Right pricing and profits. So, which is fundamentally the law of economics must work. Like everywhere, people have multiple choices. We must assume that.
Would you say that once this is corrected, perhaps in India, we will see more entrepreneurs, more people ready to invest into the sector?
I think this is one part, which is the starting part, because this determines your feasibility. The second part is your ability to execute the project fast or in a what could be called as optimum time. And to have that ability to execute the project fast, obviously there are multiple, I mean, you know, clearances are required, and rightly so, because whatever you do must happen in a sustainable, environmentally friendly manner, friendly to the communities around.
And in a time frame.
But all must happen in a given time frame.
Right.
And this obviously can do with some introspection, and we can find some ways to fast track it. Or perhaps government sometime back, when, you know, government was pushing the power generation capacity expansion, I think 5–10 years back. And that time they had come up with ideas like ultra mega power projects where, you know, I mean, government will create SPV, you have the land, environment clearances there. If there are any supporting raw materials like, let's say, coal mine to a power plant, so those concessions were also attached to it. And then people were asked to do a comparative bidding. And this meant that most of the risk of the project actually has already been taken away. And you come and construct and operate the project. I think something like this will work wonders here also, and meets the twin aims of A, building up industry to cater to your demand, plus development of those areas.
I know, Mr. Kaura, your point on investment is well taken, and for last 2–3 years perhaps we have seen investments start to grow in many of these natural resources, whether it's metals or oil and gas, because this sector has been underinvested for some time now. With the numbers now picking up, how are you reading? Are they enough, or would you say that much more investment from these current levels is needed for the demand to be met as we go forward?
Look at the oil scenario. India imports 85% of its crude requirement.
Right.
And this is a fairly sensitive commodity also from energy security point of view. So, I mean, I would think a decent figure would be that we develop our crude production capability to a level of 50% of our requirement, if not 100%.
And while of course that is desirable, but would you say all the stakeholders need to be on the same page? And that reminds me on what the Prime Minister Modi really recently in one of our events only said, that we need to move from silos to solutions. It really is about the mindset that needs to be changed. Mentality of ministers as well is something that he mentioned about. So would you say that that's an important one? It does need for the whole ecosystem to change before we actually see that happening?
I mean, if we were within our own company and let's say we had some vexed issues to be resolved like this, so I think the way we would do it is that we create an alignment around the goal first. This is what we want to reach. And usually alignment around the goal is easy, usually. Okay. Because people can agree, yeah, we need to really get it done, or we need this. What usually is difficult is the means, how you get to the goal.
Right.
So I think all stakeholders' voices are usually heard, but then some calls are taken that, okay, this is what we do. And then, as we say, with a limited democracy, we implement it.
All right. So, when we talk about the Make in India, this perhaps is one of the sectors, or rather the sector, which is properly aligned to do that, exploring to mining to Make in India to production, ensuring that you get the SMEs, MSMEs as well coming in for the sector. Yeah. What would you want to push or present to the government to ensure that we can fast track on this?
I think both sides. The one side is the upstream side, the side actually which will produce the basic metal, right? Like basic aluminium, basic copper, basic zinc, which is, and development of mines and smelting and so on and so forth. That's essential because, as we said, huge demand. Then the second is the downstream industry, which is very critical and important, and that is where the SMEs come in. And that is where they start catering to whether we have an aluminium park, maybe we have a unit which is making the hubcaps of automobile, maybe somebody is doing alloys for engine casting, somebody is doing something else, sheets, roofing. So you need to develop that part of the industry also. So I think both sides need to develop and then obviously they create benefits for the various sections of the society also. And participation.
Another area which really has been a bit of a hindrance perhaps in this sector has been the environment, the sustainable mining, etc. How far have we come there? How responsible have we gone in that sense?
I mean, can you imagine a world without aeroplanes, without cars, without cosmetics, without cell phone? Can't. So if you want all this, you need aluminium, you need oil, you need zinc. So you need copper for your next generation electric vehicles, you need cobalt for that, right? So we need all these things because that is part of the way the life is. And is there a price
to pay for that? Or
so there is no price to pay for that because industry has developed over a period of time fairly responsibly, I would say, and it's been evolving itself so that you can do responsible mining, you can do responsible processing. So, I mean, 3 zeros which are very important in this case is what we call as zero harm, zero waste, zero discharge.
You know, you are a market leader when it comes to mining and minerals. I mean, you yourself have said that you do run a very cost-effective business. You are really turning on to the technology when it comes to that. So, going forward from here, is it going to be, would you say it has to be disruptive in that sense, or would you say tried and tested and, you know, taking in all the latest technology that comes in is perhaps the way to move forward from here?
You imagine countries like Canada, Australia, I mean, and also a lot of Latin American countries, which are fairly operate large-scale mineral resources industry, and they have really evolved also over a period of time, if you like. And so I would say that technology is there. Of course, come back to your first question, there's a lot one can further do with the current automation technologies, artificial intelligences, or the IoTs and stuff like that. So I would say technology is there. It's just we just have to move forward. That's it.
What really would change the scenario that we are in right now? What would you really look forward to from the government as we go?
We are a growing country. We need all these things. We are also a country which is looking for development, job creation, creating infrastructure, improving quality of life for people, and we just have to do it. We just have to make up our mind and say, hey guys, come, let's put a 2 million ton aluminium plant here, and this is the structure, and come bid for it and go and get going.
Where do you see the maximum investment that needs to be in India? I mean, I understand, as you mentioned about zinc, you are one of the largest producers, silver, you are the biggest producers here. There are some mines which still are lying, waiting for an investor or waiting for an owner, so as to say. What really needs to be seen in sense of a push there?
I think if you take overall development of natural resources sector, I would say oil and gas side needs a lot of work to be done. It has a huge development potential. I think steel industry and iron ore industry both, there's a fairly large gap, I would say, from where we need to be and where we currently are, and the roadmap thereof. I see these two things as fairly, big gaps currently. And then, of course, development of other industries like aluminium, some of the newer metals like cobalt, which has be actually requirements for all these batteries and new vehicles and stuff like that. So these are the fields which will develop.
So going forward, as of course we are one of the fastest growing economies in the world, so as to see, and we have seen a lot of foreign investments come into India as well. Anything in particular where you feel that a market needs to be perhaps opened up even more?
I think, to my mind, India as a country has done a good job over the last 2-3 decades in opening up and trying to create a kind of a seamless market. Obviously more can be done, but I would say a fairly good job has been done already.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaura. Well, on that very positive note coming in from Mr. Kuldip Kaura on high demand, expectations, investments, and of course a very strong future for the Indian markets. That's all the time that we have on this show. Thank you so much for watching.